Thomas never thought the graveyard shift at Burger King would turn into the worst month of his life. For almost 2 years, the 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. drive-through shift had been his routine. It wasn't glamorous, but it covered rent, and as a natural night owl, he didn't mind the quiet hum of empty streets and flickering parking lot lights. After midnight, the place was usually understaffed. Sometimes it was just him running the speaker in the first window. About a month ago, something small happened. Strange, but small. Around 1:30 a.m., a sedan rolled up to the speaker. The driver was male, voice calm and forgettable. He ordered a large double Whopper with cheese meal and a Coke. Standard. Nothing unusual. At the first window, he cracked his window just enough to slide a credit card through. The glass was heavily tinted. Thomas couldn't see a face, not even a silhouette. The payment went through. Thomas handed back the receipt. And then, the car drove off. Not to the second window, not to pick up the food. Just gone. Thomas waited with the bag in his hand for a few minutes, thinking maybe the guy had accidentally pulled forward too far and would circle back. He never did. Eventually, Thomas set the food aside. Later that night, he ate it himself. Waste not, want not. People do weird things at 2 a.m. He shrugged it off. A week later, it happened again. Same time of night. Same order, same tinted window, same quiet card payment, same sudden departure before the pickup window. This time Thomas paused. Coincidence, probably. By the third time, it wasn't coincidence anymore. Same voice, same meal, same routine. The man would show up every 4 or 5 days, usually between 1 and 3 a.m. Always the same order. Always paid. Never collected. Thomas started to weirdly look forward to it. Free dinner every few nights. Some mysterious late-night benefactor funding his meals. It felt bizarre, but harmless. Until the night it wasn't. It was just after 2 a.m. when the sedan returned. Thomas recognized the voice instantly when it crackled through the speaker. Large double Whopper with cheese meal, Coke. Thomas didn't even need to write it down. But before he could confirm the order, the man added something else. "I hope you've been enjoying those Whoppers, Mr. Hurley." Thomas froze. Hurley was his last name. He didn't wear a name tag with his last name. It wasn't printed on receipts. It wasn't posted anywhere visible to customers. There was absolutely no reason a random drive-through customer should know it. Silence hung between them. Thomas finally found his voice. "Who is this? How do you know my name?" No answer. He repeated it 3 times, 4. The engine revved. The car sped off without paying, without pulling forward. Thomas felt cold for the rest of his shift. That heavy, sinking feeling in his gut wouldn't leave. Something had shifted. This wasn't a prank anymore. When he got home that morning, it got worse. A folded piece of paper lay on his doorstep. Inside, handwritten in thick black ink, "I know what you did. You have 3 days." Thomas stood there staring at it. His hands started shaking. His stomach dropped like he'd missed a step on the stairs. He had no idea what it meant. He was 24. Worked fast food, played video games on his days off. He didn't have enemies. He didn't have secrets, at least none he could think of. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat on his couch with every light in the apartment turned on. The next evening at work, the sedan came back. This time, the man didn't order food. "Write this down," the voice said calmly. Before Thomas could respond, the man gave him an address, somewhere on the outskirts of town in an area Thomas didn't recognize. "You have 2 days to bring $10,000. $10,000. Thomas almost laughed. It sounded ridiculous, impossible. But the voice wasn't joking. The car drove off. The terror settled in. There was no way he could pay that. He didn't have that kind of money. He convinced himself it had to be some elaborate scam, maybe someone messing with him. He didn't call the police. 3 days passed. Nothing happened. For a brief moment, Thomas thought it was over. Then, around midnight, while he was watching TV after work, the sound exploded through his apartment. Glass shattered. He dropped to the floor instantly, heart pounding, convinced someone was shooting at him. After a few seconds, he realized it wasn't gunfire. A rock lay in the middle of his living room floor. His front window was destroyed. By the time he looked outside, the street was empty. This time, he called the police. He told them everything. The strange orders, the name, the note, the address, the demand for money. Officers took a report. They said they'd check the address, increase patrols, Stay vigilant. Without security footage, there wasn't much they could do. That was 3 days ago. Thomas has called in sick ever since. But he knows that won't save him. The man knows where he lives. He can't afford to quit. He can't afford to move. He's trapped between shifts at a drive-through window in an apartment that no longer feels safe. Now he's considering asking management to trace the credit card used for those abandoned meals. Maybe it's stolen. Maybe it's fake. Maybe it's the only real lead he has. He still doesn't know why he was chosen. He still doesn't know what he supposedly did. And the worst part? The sedan hasn't come back yet, which somehow feels more terrifying than if it had. Because when someone tells you that you have 3 days, and then stay silent, it means they're waiting. I graduated from college 8 months ago with a degree in communications, which is ironic because it hasn't exactly helped me communicate my way into a job. I'm 23 years old, back in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by trophies from middle school and posters I was too lazy to take down. My parents are supportive, but I can feel the quiet disappointment in the air every time someone asks what I'm doing now. For now, I drive for Uber and Uber Eats. It's not what I imagined for myself, but it's money. It keeps me busy. It makes me feel like I'm at least moving instead of standing still. I mostly drive Friday and Saturday nights from around 9 p.m. until 2 or 3 in the morning. That's when the surge pricing hits and the downtown bar crowd starts spilling onto the sidewalks. Most nights are predictable. Loud college kids, couples arguing in the backseat, someone crying over an ex. Occasionally someone gets sick. I keep disinfectant wipes in the glove compartment for a reason. A few weeks ago on a Saturday night I was about ready to call it. It was around 1:30 a.m. I'd made decent money and was tired. My finger was hovering over the go offline button when one more request came through. The pickup was downtown. The drop-off, though, was way out past the suburbs, not just far, rural, the kind of area where streetlights disappear and GPS sometimes lags. I almost declined it, but the fare was high, higher than usual, so I accepted. The girl I picked up looked like a typical college student, early 20s, oversized sweatshirt, mascara slightly smudged but not drunk enough to be messy. She got in, confirmed her name, and spent the entire ride scrolling on her phone. She didn't try to make small talk. I didn't either. The drive took about 40 minutes. As we left the city behind, the roads grew darker, houses became scattered, then sparse, then gone. Eventually, I turned onto a long 2-lane road surrounded by woods on both sides. Her drop-off was at a small house sitting alone near the edge of a field. She thanked me, got out, and walked up the driveway without looking back. It was 2:07 a.m. That's when it hit me how alone I was. No streetlights, no other cars, no visible neighbors. Just darkness and trees stretching endlessly in every direction. I turned the car around and started heading back the way I came. About 10 minutes into the drive, I saw hazard lights blinking in the distance. A car was stopped in the middle of the road. 2 figures stood in front of it, waving their arms. My heart rate immediately picked up. Everything in me said, keep driving. But they were fully blocking the road. I had to slow down. I stopped about 20 feet away and cracked my window just enough to talk through. Not enough for someone to reach inside. It was a middle-aged couple, late 40s, maybe early 50s. The woman stepped forward first. Her face looked pale in my headlights. "Oh, thank God," she said, her voice trembling. "You need to turn around. The bridge up ahead collapsed earlier today." I felt a cold wave move through my chest. Collapsed? "Yes," she said quickly. "It gave out this afternoon. We almost drove right off it. There's no warning sign yet. If you keep going that way, you're going to end up in the river." She pointed behind me into the darkness. The husband spoke next, his tone calmer. Too calm. "There's a dirt road about half a mile back," he said. "It cuts through the woods. Adds maybe 15 minutes to your drive, but it connects back to the main highway. Safer than risking the bridge." I glanced at their car. It wasn't damaged, no mud, no visible stress, just parked with hazards on. "You didn't call the police?" I asked. "We did," the woman replied quickly. "They said they're handling it." Something felt off. I couldn't explain it. It wasn't anything obvious, just a small internal alarm going off. I thanked them, rolled up my window, and slowly drove past. My hands were tight on the steering wheel. About a mile down, I saw the dirt road they mentioned. It was narrow and barely visible. just a gap between trees with uneven ground leading into darkness. No lights, no markings. I slowed down. I stared at it. Then I kept driving. A few minutes later, I reached the bridge. It was completely fine. Solid concrete, no cracks, no barriers, no sign of damage whatsoever. I drove across it without any problem. When I finally reached the highway and saw streetlights again, I felt like I'd been holding my breath for 10 minutes straight. Nothing happened that night. But I didn't sleep. I kept replaying it in my head. The couple, the dirt road, the urgency in her voice, the calmness in his. 3 days later, I made a decision I probably shouldn't have. I drove back. It was the middle of the afternoon. Bright sunlight, blue sky, birds chirping, everything looked completely normal. When I reached the area where I'd seen the couple, there was no sign of them. The road was empty. I continued until I reached the dirt path. That's when I noticed something new. A wooden sign nailed to a tree right at the entrance. Dead end. It looked freshly placed. The wood wasn't weathered. The nails were shiny. That sign had not been there Saturday night. I was sure of it. I pulled over and just sat there staring at the entrance. In daylight, it didn't look terrifying. Just a narrow dirt road leading into thick trees. The path curved slightly, disappearing from view after maybe 30 yards. I considered driving down it, but my car isn't exactly built for off-roading. If I got stuck, I'd be in a worse situation. So I decided to walk a little. As soon as I stepped out and shut off my engine, the quiet hit me. It wasn't normal quiet. It was heavy. I stood at the entrance trying to see further in. The trees were dense, the air felt still. I took maybe 5 steps forward. That's when it happened. A scream. High, sharp, full of panic. It came from somewhere deep down the path. It was unmistakably a woman's voice, not distant enough to ignore, not close enough to locate. My body reacted before my brain did. I turned and sprinted back to my car. I don't even remember unlocking it. I just remember slamming the door and starting the engine with shaking hands. As I sped away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. For a split second, I thought I saw movement near the entrance of the woods, but I didn't slow down to confirm. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't gone back, but I can't stop thinking about it. If the bridge was never broken, why were they there? How many drivers turned down that road? And if that scream was real, who was it? Part of me wants to go back with a friend. Bring cameras, document everything, maybe prove it was just some twisted prank. But another part of me keeps hearing that scream in my head, and I keep thinking about how close I came to turning down that dirt road at 2 a.m. Maybe the only reason I'm still here is because I didn't. A few winters back, when I was 26, I worked the overnight security, shift at a massive warehouse complex on the outskirts of a quiet Midwestern city. The shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., no partner. No backup on site, just me, a radio, and a wall of security monitors glowing in a small office at the front of the building. The complex was huge, around 80,000 square feet of industrial shelving, forklifts, and supply crates stacked high enough to block out sight lines. During the day, it was loud and busy. At night, it felt like a steel and concrete tomb. Most nights followed the same routine. Clock in, walk the perimeter, check the loading docks, sit in the office watching cameras. Repeat every hour. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid my rent. The night everything changed started like any other. Snow was falling, light but steady. The kind that makes everything quieter than usual, almost padded. Around 1 a.m., one of the loading dock cameras triggered a motion alert. No big deal. The system was overly sensitive. Wind, snow, raccoons, anything could set it off. I pulled up the feed. Nothing. Just Dock 6 empty. Snow drifting sideways through the floodlights. 10 minutes later, another alert. Same camera. Still nothing. By 2:30 a.m., it had triggered at least 7 times. No other cameras. Just that one. And every time, the movement seemed to register right at the very edge of the frame. Like something was there, just barely out of view. That's when I started to feel it. That crawling sensation in the back of your mind when something isn't right. At 3 a.m., I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside to check it myself. The snow had stopped. The air felt sharp and metallic in my lungs. I walked the entire dock area. Every bay door was locked. No forced entry. No broken glass. And here's the part that made my stomach drop. There were no footprints in the snow. Except mine. I went back inside trying to convince myself it was just faulty equipment. About 20 minutes later, I heard it. A metallic scraping sound. Slow, heavy, like something massive being dragged across concrete deep inside the warehouse. I froze. The sound echoed, then stopped. I checked the interior cameras, 6 feeds covering the aisles. All empty. I told myself it was the building settling. Wind against sheet metal, anything but what it felt like. Then it happened again. Louder. Scrape. Pause. Bang. Like a heavy door slamming somewhere in the back. My heart was pounding hard enough I could feel it in my throat. I flipped through the cameras again. 1 clear. 2 clear. 3 clear. 4 clear. 5 clear. Camera 6. Black screen. 3 seconds of static. Then it came back online. But something was wrong. The angle had shifted slightly to the left. Just a few degrees. Like someone had physically bumped it. That's when I knew. I wasn't alone. I grabbed my flashlight and radio and stepped into the warehouse. The interior lighting was dimmed overnight to save power. Everything had this dull yellow tint that made shadows look deeper than they should be. Halfway down the main aisle, footsteps. To my left. 2 or 3 aisles over, slow, measured. Definitely human. I stopped walking. The footsteps stopped too. Silence swallowed the building. I could hear my own breathing inside my ears. After what felt like minutes, I called out, "Security, if you're in here, show yourself." Nothing. No reply. No movement. But the air felt heavy, charged. I continued the patrol, expecting someone to step out at any moment. No one did. And somehow that was worse, because I knew, absolutely knew, someone had been in there with me. The rest of the shift passed in uneasy silence. No more noises. No more alerts. At 7 a.m., I practically ran to clock out. I reported everything to my supervisor. Maintenance checked the entire building. Doors, roof access, vents. No signs of entry. No damaged cameras. No explanation. And I could tell from the looks I got that nobody believed me. But I know what I heard. I know what I saw. And to this day, Dock 6 is still the only place I've ever worked where I felt like something was deliberately playing with me. Not trying to break in. Not trying to steal, just letting me know it was there, watching. I've told this story to the police. I've told it to my parents, but I've never told it publicly. And honestly, even thinking about it makes my chest tighten. A few years ago, I was 19 and taking a gap year before college. To save money, I worked nights at a 24-hour gym on the rougher side of town. It was one of those keycard access places. No front desk staff greeting people. No trainers walking around constantly. Most nights it was just me in a small back office, watching security monitors while the building basically ran itself. The job was simple. Scan the camera feeds. Do a few cleaning rounds. Make sure no one was breaking rules. That's it. Most nights were painfully boring. Until that one. It was a Friday night shift, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. By 2 a.m. the gym was nearly empty. A couple regulars had already come and gone. Guys I recognized, quiet, focused, normal. That's when I noticed him. He was on the treadmill in the far corner, the one barely visible unless you zoomed the camera. At first nothing seemed off. New members showed up sometimes. But then I checked the treadmill stats on the system. 9 miles per hour. Okay, impressive. 10 minutes passed. Still 9 mph. 15 minutes. Still 9 mph. No breaks, no slowing. That's when something in my stomach tightened. I zoomed the camera. He wasn't dressed for a workout. Torn, dirty clothes. Long, tangled hair. And his face, completely blank. No blinking. No expression. Just staring straight ahead like he wasn't even aware of where he was. Then I noticed something that made my skin crawl. He was barefoot, running 9 miles per hour. Barefoot. By this point, he was the only customer left in the building. Just him and me. I told myself to calm down. We had a strict shoes-required policy anyway. I could use that as an excuse to approach him. I stepped out of the office and turned the corner toward the treadmill area. And my heart nearly stopped. The treadmill belt was soaked red. Blood was splattering backward with every step. His feet were shredded, skin peeling, leaving streaks across the machine. But he didn't react. No limping, no slowing, no pain response. His mouth hung open unnaturally wide as he ran, not panting, not breathing heavy, just open. I shouted over the sound of his feet slamming the belt. "Hey, you need to stop." Nothing. I yelled louder. What are you doing? That's when he spoke, without turning his head, without changing pace, in the coldest, rasping voice I've ever heard. Are you there? He wasn't winded, not even slightly. I told him again to stop. He repeated it. Are you there? Over and over. The pool of blood was growing at the back of the machine. That's when survival instinct kicked in. I backed away and rushed to the office. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but before I dialed, I glanced at the monitor. He had turned. He was staring directly into the camera, still running, still bleeding, mouth wide open, watching me. Then I heard it. A scream. Not words, just a raw, inhuman scream echoing through the gym. I looked back at the monitor, just in time to see him jump off the treadmill, without even slowing it down, and sprint out of frame. I started flipping through camera feeds. Nothing. Weight room, empty. Entrance room, empty. Locker room hallway, empty. Then I checked the one camera I hadn't looked at yet. The employee hallway. He was standing 6 feet from my office door. I have no idea how he got back there. That hallway required a staff key card. He wasn't moving. Just standing there. I lunged forward and locked the office door. 5 seconds later, the handle started shaking violently. That's when I called 911. He began screaming again. Louder this time, deep, animalistic. He rattled the door like he was trying to rip it off the hinges. Dispatch told me officers were 5 minutes away. Those were the longest 5 minutes of my life. I crouched in the corner of the office, staring at the monitor while he shook the door and screamed without stopping. Then suddenly, silence. No screaming. No movement. I checked the hallway camera. Empty. When police arrived, they searched the entire building. Every room. Every exit. Nothing. No sign of him. The only proof he had ever been there was the blood-covered treadmill. I quit the next morning. I've never gone back. And sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I still hear that voice in my head. Are you there? And I still wonder, what would have happened if I hadn't locked that door?